Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So in today's update, I really just want to take a revisit once again to talk about the $10,200 unemployment tax credit, because there are certain information that has recently just changed and certain information that wasn't necessarily changed per se, but was recently just released and revealed. And some of this is very just to specific states, so maybe your state happens to have stayed exactly the same, but I figure that all of this stuff is going to be relatively important in order to make sure that all of you guys are able to get your tax amendment as soon as you possibly can. This stuff involves things such as, for example, some people that may actually have to file a tax amendment now. There were certain changes that have to do with the income requirements, and there's even some states that have actually decided that they're actually may potentially not be doing the program anymore. So we're going to explain everything one of these in today's video to make sure everyone's right on track so that they can get it as fast as possible. So we're going to start right away, but maybe before we begin, as always, make sure you smash the like button, because after all, at the end of the day, we at least finally do have lots of approvals that have been going on. If you guys are brand new here, welcome. Maybe consider subscribing for similar videos like this, and I'll also put other videos at the end where we've already talked about lots of parts of stuff like the unemployment, the tax credit, how to get it, step-by-step instructions, and what to basically do in all of the different details. And as always, feel free to maybe comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. If you guys wanted to say hi, always great to see familiar and new faces. So with that being said, let's get started. Now, a couple just really quick important things to clarify is that if you happen to be someone that's still waiting to do your taxes because you're trying to wait for a lot of softwares to update, the great news is, as mentioned, but just to make sure, is that both AtriBlock and TurboTax has now officially updated their tax software, so you guys can pretty much feel free to kind of just do your taxes whenever you guys want to, pretty much from now, assuming that you guys haven't done it yet. Now, one of the very quick changes, and I did briefly mention it, but it's really about the tax income requirement. This is really specifically to some people they were asking about it, which is basically that, as you guys probably know, is that $10,200 tax amendment normally only applies to people making under $150,000. However, one of the quick changes is that it used to be that they would calculate every part of your income into factor inside of this requirement. The great news is that now you don't have to include your unemployment income in order to qualify for it. So what does this really basically mean? The fast answer is basically, if you happen to, let's say, be someone that, for example, last year made $140,000, but then you made $15,000 on unemployment, that 140 plus 15 exceeds 150,000, so you would not qualify. Now, because they took out of that 15,000, so you don't have to include unemployment income, you would be able to qualify because your income now is below $150,000. This is really much more relevant to a lot of joint filers who are married, when, if, for example, one of the couples happens to maybe be on unemployment and didn't make a lot of money, but then the other person within that couple maybe just made lots and lots of money that year, but since they filed together, that's where it would really apply. Now, one relative change that did actually relatively just recently happen is really about the tax amendment side. I technically did mention this in one of my previous videos, but just in case if you guys didn't fully watch that yet, and also put it at the very end screen as well, which is really about the tax amendment. So most of you guys probably already know, and I talked a lot much more about it in one of the last videos. I think it's the one that's called $10,200 Coming, but the general idea is that most of you guys should be relatively safe, so you don't have to file a tax amendment. However, it's important to notice is that there may still be a few people that have to file a tax amendment if there are certain particular cases that apply to you. I talked a lot more about it in one of the past videos, and I'll put it at the very end screen. It's the one that's physically called $10,200 Coming, and it goes into what are those particular exceptions. So since we've already kind of covered, I'll just leave the video there if you guys are interested in finding out. But most of you guys should be relatively safe. So that's the really great news. It's just really for particular people, just in case. Now, one of the things that might have actually just recently changed, this one is much more state specific. So there's a very good chance that maybe in your state everything stayed the same. In other states maybe it was changed, and in other states it wasn't necessarily changed, but it was just simply revealed to have new information, which is the fact that there are actually certain states and I think it was important to specify, that may not necessarily be doing the $10,200 unemployment tax credit. So some people were relatively confused about what's been going on with that. The general idea is that $10,200 unemployment unemployment tax credit applies to basically every single person who is on some kind of unemployment program, regardless of whether this is traditional UIP, UAP, UC, FedEd, EB. If you are on some kind of unemployment program, it pretty much applies to you from last year. However, what's important to recognize is that $10,200 unemployment tax credit, it's meant to basically waive and cover up the cost for anyone that was potentially taxed or would have been potentially taxed on your federal taxes from last year, and for some states also on your state tax. Basically, the general idea is that $10,200, it's pretty much going to cover every single person's taxes that they normally would have paid or maybe already paid off of their unemployment income on the federal level, but only certain people on the state level. So whether this is considered maybe really, really great news, or maybe just very neutral news, or maybe just not very good news actually, just really, really depends on the specific state, because there are some states that will be opting out of it. So you may not necessarily have to pay federal taxes, but there is a chance you may actually still have to pay state taxes. Now, thankfully, the great news is that most of you guys probably made more money off of your federal income, specifically from the federal boost, than the actual state income that you guys got, because especially, last year when we had like the $600 per week glorious boosters that we basically had. But the general idea is that if off of your state unemployment income, you still at the end of the day collected several $1,000s, then you may still have to eventually pay some level of taxes to it. The general idea is that I believe there are 13 specific states that are opting out of the program. This map should relatively highlight which specific states are doing it, which states are not doing it, and then also which states are just sort of maybe doing it, but only partially. But I believe the 13 specific states that are not going to be doing this program is pretty much going to be Colorado, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Kentucky, Massachusetts, West Virginia, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Carolina, New York, Rhode Island, and South Carolina. So I know especially New York, because I know, and why I mention New York, aside from the fact that I know there's so many people that are also from New York here, is really just because the fact that New York already is one of the states that is one of the highest taxes actually in the entire country. It's that the fact that now we have to potentially get taxed even more off of the state taxes. From looking at this map, the general idea is that if you see your state and it's currently yellow, it means that they're not going to be doing this program. So the likelihood is you will still have to pay state taxes off of your unemployment income. And then if it's any kind of blue, so any shade of blue, then it means that you should be relatively more or less pretty much set. So the great news is that they are going to be waiving your taxes on both your state and federal taxes when it comes to unemployment. And if it says orange, or if your state happens to be the color orange, then it pretty much just means it's kind of neutral news. Your state is going to be doing the program, but just partially. So maybe they might not be doing the entire $10,200, but you at least get something waived. So that is the really, really, really great news. And this kind of also maybe leads on to another really important information, which is just the fact that because not every single state is going to be taking part in this unemployment tax credit, the $10,200, it also does mean that while the really, really great news is that for most of us, or most people certainly is that the taxes will not be due until May 17th. The lesser good news is that because of this reason, there may still be actually many states that may actually still be requiring taxes to be done by April 15th. So the general idea is that most states should be relatively set in the sense that they're able to get the extension, so they do not have to complete their taxes until May 17th. So if they, just like to basically take their time, either because they want to sort out their bills, their payments, or honestly if they're just tired, which is, not a bad reason. I mean, after most of last year, I think most people just need to rest up a little bit. But the general idea is that there may still be certain states that you may still have to do your taxes even by April 15th, which is crazy to think is literally in exactly 1 week basically from when I'm shooting this video. That depending on the state, you guys probably will have to at least look at your state's state website or the government website to basically be able to find out that even though the federal taxes are not necessarily due until May 17th, you may still have to do your taxes by April 15th if your state is is not taking part in this extension. So I do think it's important to mention is that every single thing that we mention is potentially subject to change. I wouldn't bet on it, but it is something that could potentially happen. If you guys are brand new here, maybe consider subscribing, so if we do end up getting some kind of changes or updates, we can definitely be sure to share it. And also feel free if you guys maybe have other information about your specific state that you're also interested in sharing as well, because it's always great to know from people that are actually officially living in a particular place, more than probably any other resource that we can possibly try to dig out and find from the internet and pretty much everywhere else. But that's what I pretty much wanted to really be able to clarify in today's update, so hopefully you guys found something relatively insightful. If there is something that you guys maybe have to potentially change or do, whether this is about the tax amendment or your taxes, or you realize that the extension is actually not necessarily going to be until May now for your state, then I think it's important to really just make sure every single person is able to stay on track to know about it before the actual deadline comes, especially now that we still have 1 week until taxes are due to really get noted. So, but that's pretty much what I really wanted to share in today's update. If you guys hopefully found something insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button. If you guys are brand new here, maybe consider subscribing for similar videos like this. I'll try to put other hopefully also as helpful videos if you guys haven't checked it at the very end screen. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all, or information if you guys have anything as well to share. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again. Enjoy the hopefully weather finally starting to get relatively warm if you happen to be in the Northeast. Thank you guys so much again, and hope to see you guys next time.